Hello all, welcome to the tutorial session on object-oriented concepts. In this video, we'll learn some of the concepts of exception handling techniques, that is try catch, throw, throws and finally. Before we learn some of the techniques in exception handling, we'll understand what is an exception. An exception is an abnormal condition that arises in a code at runtime. When I say abnormal condition, it can be an integer divided by 0. Any integer divided by 0 is an exception. So whenever an exception occurred in a program, the program gets terminated and a system generated error message will be displayed. Now let us see few of the exceptions. Arithmetic exceptions. When an integer is divided by 0, so it is an arithmetic exception. Well, what do you mean by array index out of bounds exceptions? When a programmer tries to access an illegal array index, so in that case, this exception is thrown. That is, array index out of bounds exception is thrown. Well, if the file is not accessible or if it is not available, then the system throws file not found exception. And when an application tries to attempt to use null in case of an object, so then system will throw null pointer exception. That's it about the exception. Now we'll understand why exception should be handled. Well, there are two benefits. The first one is it allows to fix errors. Second one is it prevents the program getting terminated automatically. As you all know, whenever there is an exception occurred, the program gets terminated automatically. Well, if you handle these exceptions, then we can prevent the program getting terminated automatically, and also we can fix the errors. So these are the two benefits of handling the exceptions in Java. System generated error message are thrown by the Java runtime system when an exceptions are occurred. So because of this, most of the user gets confused. So as soon as an exception occurs, the program gets terminated and a system generated error message will be displayed. So because of this, many users gets confused. Well, we can handle these exceptions in Java by using these 5 keywords. So those are try catch, throw, throws and finally. Now let us understand about each of these keywords briefly. The first one is try. What does the try does? It monitors the block of code that would throw an exception. Usually try is used with the clause catch. What does the try does is it will monitor the block of code. And what does the catch does is the catch block can catch the exception and handle it in some logical manner. So the code or the block of code is mentioned in a try block, and whenever an exception is raised, and it will be caught in a catch block and it will be handled in a logical manner. What do you mean by throw? System generated exceptions are thrown by the Java runtime system. Well, if you want to manually throw an exception, then throw keyword is used. As the name itself says, throw. If you want to manually throw an exception, then we can make use of a throw keyword. What do you mean by throws? It indicates the type of exception the method may throw. Now say suppose if method is throwing some arithmetic exception, so we need to indicate the method that this method throws the arithmetic exceptions. Now why we have to indicate? So that the callers of the method can handle the exception. Now finally we have finally keyword. This block of code will be executed even if the exception is handled or not. Well, if the exception occurred or handled or not, the finally block of code will be executed. So these are some of the exception handling techniques. Now let us look into the general form of handling exception handling techniques. Try catch. Try, here is a block of code. That within the try block we'll be having a block of code. what does the try does is it will be monitoring the block of code. If at all if there is an exception, well, it will be caught in a catch clause, and within the catch clause we have to handle that exception. Okay, yes. And a try, yes, one try can have a multiple catch block. Okay, and yes, finally, yes, after that we'll have a finally keyword. So this block of code over here within the finally block of code will be executed even if the exception occurs. The finally block of code will be executed, or even though if it is handled, but still the block of code will be executed in the finally block. Okay, yes. Now let us understand about an uncaught exceptions. What happens if you don't handle the exception? Yes, here is a simple example. Let me take a pen. Yes, we have a class called exes, and within the main function we have declared a variable called int, and it is 0, and we have declared one more variable called as a, where it is initialized with an expression that is 42 divided by d. Here value of d is 0. So well, any number when an integer is divided by 0, okay, it's an exception. It is called as arithmetic exception. So what happens here is the program gets terminated here itself. The program gets terminated, and this statement will not be printed. As you can see, after this statement will not be printed, the program gets terminated after reading this statement. Okay, so this is the error message which you get. Okay, so that is, yes, exception in thread main java.lang.arithmetic exception divided by 0. Okay, yes, this is because of we have not handled these exceptions. The system, this is called as a system generated error message. Okay, the Java virtual machine will throw some exceptions, okay, by itself. Now let us understand one more example of an uncaught exception. Yes, let us understand. Here is a class unchecked exception within the main function. Here is an array. We have just initialized an array that is from 10 to 60. The index starts from 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, but here I am accessing num of 7, so it is an out of boundary. Here index is out of boundary. Well, in that case an exception is thrown. Okay, what exception? Yes, array index out of boundary exception. The program gets terminated and it will display some system generated error message. Yes, so these are the some of the exceptions. That is, we saw in the previous slide we saw arithmetic exception. Now in this slide we saw about array index out of bounds exception. Okay, now we'll handle those exceptions. Yes, now let us understand how try and catch handles the exception. Okay, try block monitors the piece of code that would throw an exception. Okay, whereas catch block can catch the exception and handle it in some logical manner. Well, try block monitors a piece of code, and well, if an exception occurs, it throws, whereas catch block catches the exception and handle it in some logical manner. Okay, now this both try and catch is used to handle the exception so that your program will not be terminated. Okay, the keywords try and catch work together. Yes, you can't have a try without a catch or catch without a try. Yes, to handle the exception we need both the clauses. Both try and catch clause should be used to handle the exception. Yes, here is the general form. Okay, so in the try block, what does the try block does is it will monitors the block of code, and well, if any exception arises over here, and well, it will be thrown. And what does the catch block does is it will catch that exception and handle it in some logical manner. Now let us understand this try and catch with a simple example. Yes, yes, let me take a pen. Yes, let me consider a simple class with the main function and two variables defined, that is d and a, and we have got a try block. So within the try block I have some piece of code. What code it is? I have initialized d is equal to 0 and a is equal to 42 divided by d. Yes, as you can see here, when an integer is divided by 0, it's an arithmetic exception. Well, an exception is thrown over here. Okay, an exception is thrown. Now, the remaining statement, so this statement will not be executed, as you can see here. The exception occurred over here, that is arithmetic exception. When an integer is divided by 0, an exception is thrown, that is called as arithmetic exception. Okay, as you can see, the arithmetic exception which is thrown in a try block, it is caught in a catch statement. Okay, so in the catch statement I can handle that exception. So as you can see here, we are just matching the arithmetic exception over here, and what it does is it will print division by 0. Okay, I repeat once again, we have a try block. What does a try block does is it will monitor the piece of a code. Here we have got an exception, that is when an integer is divided by 0, it's an arithmetic exception. So this block of code throws an arithmetic exception, so which is caught by a catch clause. Okay, so and well, we will be printing division by 0. Okay, and yes, the rest of the code, as you can see here, this is the rest of the code after catch statement will be executed. Now this is how we handle this arithmetic exception using try and catch. Okay, so that your program is not terminated. As you can see, the rest of the code is also executed. Okay, now what is the output of this code? Yes, as you can see here, division by 0, it is over here, division by 0, and after catch statement. As you can see here, this statement is not executed because exception is occurred over here in this line, and it is been thrown and caught by a catch statement. Yes. Let us explore about multiple catch statements. Yes, more than one exceptions could be raised by a single piece of code. Yes, in the previous slide we saw a program where the piece of code in a try block threw one exception, that was arithmetic exception. So that has been caught in a catch statement and it has been handled. Okay, same way, now let us look into a general form of multiple catch statements. Yes, now the piece of code inside the try block can throw different exceptions. For example, arithmetic exceptions or null pointer exceptions or array index out of bounds exceptions. So in that case, the try block should have multiple catch statements. Okay, each catch block handling different exceptions. Okay, yes. To handle multiple exceptions, we can specify 2 or more catch clauses, each catching a different type of exception. Yes, as you can see here, we are using multiple catch statements to handle different types of exceptions. Okay, so each catch block will be catching different exception, as you can see in the parameter over here. So each catch block will be catching different exceptions. Well, when an exception is thrown, each catch statement is inspected in order, and the first one whose type matches that of the exception is executed. For example, if this piece of code in a try block threw arithmetic exception, so each catch statement will be inspected. Well, if this catch statement matches with the arithmetic exception, then this catch block will be executed. Yes, that's it about the concept of multiple catch statements. Yes. Now let us look into the hierarchy of exception. Okay. Yes. When we use multiple catch statements, the subclass exceptions must come before any of their superclass exception. Yes, as you can see over here. Let me take a pen. Yes. Here exception over here is a superclass. Rest all are the subclasses. So what does this statement says? Whenever we use multiple catch statements, the subclass exceptions must come before any of the superclass exception. That is, all these are the subclass exceptions, okay, must come before the superclass exceptions. Now, you might wonder why subclass exception should come before superclass exception. So, here is the reason. Yes, because the superclass exceptions will catch the exception of that type plus any of its subclass exceptions. Yes. Now, what does this superclass exception does is, the superclass exception will handle that type of exceptions plus the subclass exceptions. Okay. Now you might ask why subclass exceptions must be written first and then after that we have to write superclass exceptions. Yes, because the subclass would never be reached if it came after its superclass. That's the reason we have to mention, suppose if you are using multiple catch statements, the subclass exception should be come before the superclass exception. Yes, now let us learn a program that demonstrates multiple catch statements in Java. Yes, we have got a class multicatch where the main method resides. Okay. Yes. Now we have got a try block where we have a small piece of code in it. Okay. Int a is equal to args.length. Here args is nothing but an abbreviation for the arguments. Yes, the value of a here depends upon the number of arguments passed through command line. If no arguments passed in a command line, then the value of a will be 0, and if one arguments passed, then the value of a will be 1. Then after that, I'll be just printing the value of a, and then we have a statement that is int b is equal to 42 divided by a. Yes, so if value of a is 1, then no exception is thrown. Okay, well, if value of a is 0, then this statement will throw an exception, that is arithmetic exception. Okay, yes. Next I will be, yes, we have an array variable c which is initialized to 1. Okay, I can say that c of 0 is initialized to 1. Okay, yeah, in the next statement, as you can see here, c of 42, yes, it's an illegal index array. So I'm trying to access an illegal index, so this is an exception. So this raises an exception, that is array index out of bounds exception. Okay, yes. So this small piece of code can raise two exceptions, that is, one is arithmetic exception, another one is array index out of bounds exception. Okay, so for that I require two catch statements. So here we have a two catch statement. So this catch statement, it will handles arithmetic exception, and this catch statement, it will handle array index out of bounds exception. Okay, yes. So then after that I have some piece of code. This I can be said as rest of the code. Okay, which is after try catch block. Okay, yes. Now the question is, what should be the file name of this program? Okay, the file name should be multicatch.java. Yes, as you can see, the class name here is multicatch. The file name of this program should be multicatch.java. How do you compile it? Using the command, yes, javac multicatch.java. Let me erase. Yes, javac multicatch.java. Okay, now how do you execute this code? Okay, so or interpret it, java multicatch. Yes, as you can see here, I have not passed any arguments. So since I have not passed any arguments while executing the code, so the value of a will be 0. As you can see here, the value of a is 0 because I have not passed any arguments. Okay, the value of a, it was printed as 0. Okay, and the very next statements, an exception is thrown, that is arithmetic exception. Okay, so whenever an arithmetic exception is thrown and it is handled in a catch clause, the catch statement will handle that arithmetic exception. Okay, and well, it will print divide by 0, and some object of arithmetic exception is printed. As you can see here, divide by 0, and this is an object of arithmetic exceptions. And the control from here, it will not go to the next catch statement, it will directly go to the rest of the code. So what do we do in the rest of the code? We'll be printing array try catch blocks. Yes, so this is just to mention that the rest of the code is executed. Okay, even though there is an exception called as arithmetic exception is raised in the code and it is been handled in a catch block, and still the rest of the code is executed and the program is not terminated here. Okay, okay, now let me execute the same code once again. Yes, java multicatch dot java, then after that I'll be interpreting it, that is java multicatch. Yes, as you can see here, now I have just passed an argument, that is test argument. I have passed one argument, so then the value of a will be 1 because args.length is nothing but 1. Okay, so yes, value of a is equal to 1, and then the next statement, this works fine. B is equal to 42 divided by 1, no issues. and next statement, that is int array c is equal to 1, but here I'm trying to access an illegal index. So c of 42 is equal to 19, and here c of 42 is an illegal index. So this throw an error that is called as array index out of bounds exception. So this statement throws an array called as array index out of bounds exception, and it is caught in a catch statement over here, and it is handled. Okay, so yes, it will print array index OOB. Yes, as you can see, array index OOB, and it will print the array index of bounds object of that. And after that, yes, the rest of the code is executed, as you can see over here. That is after try catch blocks, which means the program is not terminated. Okay, and the rest of the code is executed. So yes, that's it. This is how the piece of code can throw multiple exceptions. As you can see over here, it threw arithmetic exception, and it also threw array index out of bounds exception, and it has been handled. Okay, yes, that's it about this demonstration of multiple catch statements. Hope the concept is clear. Yes, now let us explore about nested try blocks. Well, when a try block is defined within another try, it is called as nested try block. Yes, as you can see here, the try block is defined within another try. Okay, it is called as nested try block. Okay, yes. The try block which encloses another try block is called outer try block, and the enclosed try block is called inner try block, as you can see here. So this is called as an outer try block, and this try block is called as inner try block. Okay, yes. If an exception occurs within outer try block, the control of execution is transferred to outer catch block, as you can see over here. If an exception occurs within outer try block, okay, this is an inner try block and this is an outer try block. Well, if at all, if exception occurs over here, the control of executions is transferred to the outer catch block. Okay, so this is an outer catch block and this is an inner catch block. Okay, the control will come to an outer catch block. Yes. Okay, now if an exception occurs inside inner try block, the catch block associated with this inner try block is searched for a proper match. Well, if at all, if an exception occurred in an inner try block, then that inner catch block is verified whether it can handle the exception or not. Well, if the inner catch block doesn't handle the exception, then the control will go to an outer catch block to handle the exception. Yes, as you can see here, if no match is found, the control of execution is transferred to the next outer try catch block to handle the exception of inner try block. Yes, which means if inner catch blocks doesn't handle that particular exception, the control goes to a outer catch block to handle the exception. Okay, well, still if outer catch block doesn't handle that exception, then Java runtime will throw an system generated error message and the program will get terminated. Yes, now let us understand this nested try statements with a simple program. Yes, let me take a pen. Yes, here this is called as an outer try block. So within the outer try block we have got one more try block and this is called as inner try block. Okay, and yes, this is called as an inner catch statement. Okay, and this is an outer catch statement. Okay, yes, so now, yeah, int a is equal to args.length. Here args is nothing but an abbreviation for the arguments. So if at all, if I don't pass any arguments in the command line, then the value of a will be 0, and if I pass one arguments, then the value of a will be 1. Now, well, if I don't pass any arguments in command line arguments, the value of a will be 0, and as you can see over here, b is equal to 42 divided by a. That is, if value of a is 0, then this statement will throw an arithmetic exceptions. So whenever this arithmetic exception is thrown, well, this is in outer block. Whenever an exception is thrown in outer block, it will go to an outer catch statements. So it will go over here, and yes, there is a match, and that arithmetic exception is been handled in the outer catch block. Okay, Well, now let us go to the inner catch block or inner try block. Okay, so well, if a is equal to 1, which means if there is one arguments passed in a command line, so then the next statement we have a is equal to a divided by a minus a, which means 1 minus 1 is 0. Again, this statement will throw an exceptions. Whenever an exception is raised in inner try block, so it will go to first it will go to a inner catch block. Yes, as you can see, well, in the inner catch block doesn't handle arithmetic exception, then the control goes to a outer catch block. Okay, so in an outer catch block it handles arithmetic exception. So this is how the exception is handled in an inner catch block. Okay, let me clear it. Yes, now what if two arguments is passed in a command line arguments? Then the value of a will be 2. Okay, well, if a is equal to 2, then what happens here is the next statement, array of c is initialized to 1, which means c of 0 is equal to 1. But here, as you can see, c of 42 is equal to 99, which means I'm trying to access an illegal index. So this throw an exception. It's an exception is array index out of bounds exception is thrown. So in this case, whenever an exception raised in inner block, okay, inner try block, so inner catch block is executed. So this, as you can see, this catch block, inner catch block, handles this array index out of bounds exception. That's it. The program will not be terminated. So this is a simple program that demonstrates nested try statements. Okay, now as you can see, the file name of this should be nesttry.java. Let me check the output of it. See, as you can see here, whenever we don't pass any arguments, so the value of a will be 0, then it throws an arithmetic exception. Well, if I pass one argument, as you can see here, I just passed one argument, the value of a will be 1. Okay, then even though it is an arithmetic exception. And well, as you can see, I just passed the two arguments here. Okay, so the value of a will be 2, and that through array index out of bounds exception. Okay, so yes, we just saw a program that demonstrates nested try blocks. Okay, yes, that's it. Yes, now let us explore about throw keyword in Java. Yes, the previous examples were about catching exceptions generated automatically by the Java virtual machine. Yes, till now we saw some of the programs where Java virtual machine itself generated exceptions. Okay, but now we can manually throw an exception using a throw keyword. Yes, the throw keyword in Java is used to manually throw an exception. Here's the general form: throw, new operator, exception underscore class, and then the error message. So this exception underscore class can be predefined exceptions or user defined exception. Okay, yes, throw keyword is used to throw user defined exception and predefined exceptions as well. Okay. The flow of execution stops immediately after any execution is thrown using throw keyword. Yes, the same as Java virtual machine, whenever an exception is thrown by Java virtual machine, the program gets terminated. Same way, when we manually throw an exception by the programmer, even the program gets terminated. Okay, well, if it is handled, then the rest of the code will be executed. Yes, now let us understand this throw keyword with a simple example. Okay, yes, let me take a pen. Yes, here is an example called as class test throw. So, and here is a method. Okay, and this is called as a static method. Okay, so static void validate, and it has a parameter called as age. Okay, and well, if age is less than 18, so it will throw an arithmetic exception. If the value of age is less than 18, and it will throw arithmetic exception. So this is manually thrown by the programmer. Okay, so using a keyword throw. And else, if age is greater than 18, then yes, it will print a message, welcome to oath. Okay, now let us look into the main function, main method. So here is a, yeah, this is, it calls a method validate, and it passes a parameter 13. Okay, and well, 13 is less than 18, which means it will throw an arithmetic exception. So yes, when an arithmetic exception is thrown, we have not handled that exception, and that's the reason the program gets terminated, and it will display some error message. Yes, as you can see here, it will display some error message because we have manually thrown an arithmetic exception, but we have not handled that exception. That's the reason rest of the code is not executed and the program got terminated, displaying some error message. What is the error message? Yes, exception in thread main java.lang.arithmetic exception is not valid. Yes, this program just demonstrates the use of throw keyword in Java. Okay. Yes. Now let us consider one more example. In the previous program, we saw how can we throw an predefined exceptions. Now we'll see how we can throw an user-defined exception. So to create an user-defined exception, for that we need to create a class extends superclass exception. Okay, here exception is a superclass. Okay, it is a predefined class. Okay, and I just created a class called as myCanara, and here is a constructor. It's a parameterized constructor. So this super s, it will call a constructor of a superclass. Okay, yes. Now this is how I create a user defined exception. The user defined exception name is myCanara. Okay, yes. And then I created a class main, and here is a main method, and I have initialized a local variable int age is equal to 13, and within the try block, well, if yes, age is less than 18, in that case I'll be manually throwing an exception. And what type of exception is this? Is a user defined exception. As you can see here, myCanara, this is an user defined exception which I have already created. Okay, it's in customized exceptions that prints you are not eligible for voting. Okay, else it will print welcome to vote. Okay, now whenever an exception is thrown, it has to be handled, and it is caught in a catch statement. As again you can see here, again in the catch statement we have used myCanara. Okay, and how it is been handled, it will display exception caught, and yes, system.out.println, it's an object of an exception. It's an object of an exceptions dot get message. It will print you are not eligible for voting. Yes. Yes. Thus this program just demonstrates how we can throw an user defined exception using throw keyword. Okay. Yes. Yes. Now let us learn about throws keyword in Java. Throws clause indicates the type of exception the method may throw so that the callers of the method can handle the exception. Yes. What does the throws clause does is it gives the indication to the callers of the method that which exception the method may throw so that the callers of the method can handle that exception. Okay. Yes. Here is a general form. As you can see here, this is a method definition. So within the definitions we'll be using throws clause within the type of exception. So this is nothing but it's just an indication to the caller of the method telling that this method might throw this exception. Okay, so sometimes the method might throw more than one exception. Okay, that could be mentioned over here separated with a comma. Okay, now let us understand about a simple about throws with a simple program. Okay, yes. Yes, here is a class throws demo. Okay, and yes, within that we have a method called as it's a static method called as throw1, and that throws an illegal access exception. And we have got a main method, and within the main method we have a caller of the method within the try block. Okay, that handles illegal access exception. Yes. Now what is the use of this throws keyword over here is it just indicates the caller of the method. Okay, it just gives an indication to the caller of the method telling that the method will be throwing an illegal access exception and the caller of the method should handle that exception. Okay, so using try and catch we handle that illegal access exception. Yes. Now the question is, what is the output of the code? Yes, within the method throw1 will be just printing inside throw1, and yes, the programmer manually throws an exception. Okay, so yes, using a throw keyword, so we'll be manually throwing an illegal access exception. Yes, now what does the throws does is, so it will be just giving an instruction to the instruction or indication to the caller of the method, telling that this method will be throwing an illegal access exception and the caller of the method should handle that exception, okay, using try and catch. Okay, yes, now what is the output? Yes, inside throw 1, and the method and the exception has been thrown and the control comes over here, and yes, within that it will catch that exception and it will print the object of that exception. Okay, now you might wonder, how did you call this method without any object? Because here the method is static. Okay, so to call a static method we did not require any object. Okay, yes, that's it about throws keyword. Now let us understand about finally. Yes, what does finally does? The finally, let me take a eraser pointer. Yes, the finally block of code will be executed even if the exception is handled or not. Well, whether the exception occurred or not, the finally block of code will be executed. Yes, as you can see over here. Yes, here's the program code. Exception occurred. Whether the exception occurred or not. Well, if the exception is not occurred, the final blocks of code will be executed. Well, if exception has occurred, and whether the exception is handled or not. Well, if it is handled, the block of code is executed. And well, what happens if it is not handled? Even though the exception is not handled, the finally block of code is executed. Thus, what I can say is, the block of code which is available in a finally block will be executed whether the exception occurred or finally block of code executed when exception occurred and it is been handled. Yes, we'll see. Yes, here is a class, okay, and the main method, and yes, as you can see here, again there is an arithmetic exception. Okay, and well, it is within the try block. Okay, yes, we have handled the arithmetic exception and it is been caught and it is been handled, and will be just displaying the value of its object. Yes, as you can see, the finally block of code will be always executed whether or not an exception is occurred. Okay, and well, since the exception is handled here, the rest of the code is also executed. Okay, as you can see here, the output is, well, it will first display the object of arithmetic exception, and then finally block is always executed, and yes, the rest of the code, as you can see here, rest of the code will be executed. Yes, thus I can say that finally the block of code which is available in the finally will be executed even though the exception is handled or not. That doesn't matter. The block of code which is available in finally block will be executed. Yes, that's it about the exception handling techniques. We have already learned about try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. Yes, let us try some of the simple Java programs. Yes, we have class output and we have a try catch block. Yes, within the try block we have a code where a is equal to 0, b is equal to 5, and yes, as you can see here, c is equal to 5 divided by 0. Here it's an arithmetic exception. Okay, the arithmetic exception is thrown. Okay, and well, this statement will not be executed. Okay, because the arithmetic exception is thrown over here, and well, it has been caught in a catch statement. Okay, as you can see here, we have exception over here. It's a superclass of arithmetic exception. Well, we can use exception also, and that prints the statement world. Okay, yes, the output is option B, world. Let me check. Yes, as you can see, the output is world. Now let us solve one more program. Yes, we have got class output and we have got a try catch block. Same way, a is equal to 0 and b is equal to 5, and yes, here it's an arithmetic exception. It is thrown and it is being caught in a catch statement. Okay, that prints world. Well, this statement will not be printed because as you already know that in the previous statement the exception was thrown. Okay, and yes, as you already know that any block of code within the finally block will be executed whether or not the exception is handled. Okay, so any block of code inside a finally block will be executed. Okay, so again it will print world, so that's it, the output will be world. Yes, that is the correct answer. Yes, now let us solve one more program. It's regarding an exceptional handling. Yes, we have a try catch block, and yes, it will print a, and yes, it throw manually, the programmer throws a null pointer exception. Yes, here inside the try block we are throwing a null pointer exception, and well, it is been caught. No, as you can see here, this catch statement over here, it is handling arithmetic exception, it is not handling null pointer exception. So in that case this program gets terminated. Okay, the program gets terminated, and it will print some error message, system generated error message. Well, the answer is not A, and the answer is not B, and answer is not C as well, because the answer is runtime exception, because this null pointer exception is not being handled. Okay, only the arithmetic exception was handled, so that's the reason it's a runtime exception. Okay, let us solve one more program. Yes, we have got a class A, and class A consists of instance variable I, and it has a method called as display that prints the value of I. And class B extends A, so which means B will be inheriting all the properties of A. Okay, and we have got a method instance variable J and a method display that prints the value of J. Okay, yes, I'll be just creating an object of class B, and I'll be initializing object dot I is equal to 1. Yes, using the object of class B I can initialize the object of class A, because B has inherited the properties of A. Well, I is initialized to 1 and J is initialized to 2, and here I am creating a reference variable of superclass. Okay, and here I am assigning the object to a superclass variable. Yes, now r dot display. So what does r dot display does is, again it will be calling the method of that belongs to class B. Okay, yes, so what will be the output? J is equal to 2. Yes, the answer is 2. Yes, let us go to the next problem. Yes, as you can see here is an abstract class. An abstract class has a instance variable and abstract method. As you already know that abstract method doesn't have any definition. Okay, and this abstract method should be compulsorily be defined in its derived class. As you can see here, the abstract method is being implemented or defined in its subclass. Okay, here class B extends A. Class B is a subclass of superclass A. Okay, now we'll be creating one more class. In that we have created an object of class B. Okay, and yes, using that object dot J is initialized to value 2, and I'll be calling object dot display. Yes, the answer will be 2 itself. Is it correct? Yes, the answer is 2. Yes, now let us solve one more problem. Okay, where we have class A and we have one instance variable I. Okay, class B extends A, so class B will be inheriting all the feature of class A, which means that using the object of B I can access the I value. Okay, and then void display, and as you can see here, super dot I, as you can see, the super keyword is used to refer the superclass variable. Okay, super dot I is equal to J plus 1. Okay, and then we'll be printing the value of J and I. As you can see here, we'll be creating an object of class B. Using object, I'll be initializing the value of I to 1, and J value will be is equal to 2. The value of J is initialized to 2, and yes, I'll be just calling, using the object I'll be calling the display method. There is a spelling mistake. Yes, obj, I'll be calling a display method. So what do we do in a display method here is super dot I is equal to j plus 1. So the I value will become 3 now. Okay, because value of j is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay, and now I'm going to print the value of j and I. What is the value of j? Value of j is 2 and value of I is 3. So the answer is 2, 3. Yes, is it correct? Yes, the answer is 2, 3. Yes, that's it. Thank you for watching this video. Please do like, subscribe and share. Thank you so much.